I feel like the stories I'm going to tell today are like the sorts of things I'm supposed to hold back for like a tell-all transsexual memoir or whatever, but apparently I'm just going to turn them into YouTube content. So, hi, welcome to the video. So it's been like just over a year now since I finally accepted the fact that I was transgender. And one of the things that's kept happening to me since I came to that realization is I keep on remembering these little moments from my life, which at the time were really confusing for me, but which now feel like these super obvious clues that I was in fact trans all along. And so today I'm going to share some of those with you. Before I get into it though, I do want to take a moment just to talk about what this video is not going to be. This is not going to be a collection of stories about how, you know, when I was 10 years old, I used to put on mummy's dresses and high heels and look in the mirror and wonder if I was always supposed to be a little girl. And it's not that I necessarily blame anybody for expecting stories like that, because it is just kind of like the default trans story that everybody has been fed. And listen, do I have stories like that? Yes, I do. So, you know, if you are only here because you want to find out if I used to secretly put on my mum's lipstick, then yes, I did. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. But for me, not only am I quite uncomfortable with the idea of telling those sorts of stories publicly because of the way they are often sensationalized, but also, I don't know, people have heard them, you know? They're not particularly interesting to me. And so what I want to do is tell the stories that are much more specific to my own experience. So with that said, here are my clues that I was transgender all along. Number one is one of my mum's old school photos. Now, unfortunately, I don't have this photo to show you today. I asked my mum and she was unable to locate it. If she does find it, then I'll post a picture of it on Instagram or something. But for now, I'll just describe it to you all. So it's a school photo where my mum is about 7 years old. She's wearing this little maroon pinafore dress as her uniform, and she has very short hair. Apparently my gran was like attempting some kind of Mia Farrow look, but my mum hated it. My mum hated the short hair because she thought that it made her look like a boy, which is important. Now, for whatever reason, this like photo was not tucked away in an album somewhere in our house, but just like lived on the kitchen counter for a while. And I don't remember thinking that much of it initially, other than like, Mum used to have short hair, like a boy or whatever. But there was a moment where this photo became suddenly very important to me, which was when one of my mum's friends came over. She saw the photo and then she laughed at it because she thought it was a photo of me wearing a little dress. I definitely remember being teased about it because, you know, how hilarious that a little boy would wear a dress, and I was, you know, mortified, obviously, because, you know, how could anyone ever mistake me for a little girl? Ew. But there was also this other feeling that I had in this moment, one that I didn't necessarily understand at the time, but which is very neatly summed up by what I did next. After the photo was put back into storage, I remember I deliberately sorted out and I put it back on the kitchen counter in the hopes that somebody might make that same mistake again. I wanted somebody to look at that picture of a little girl and see me. So that was clue number one. Number two is Animal Crossing New Leaf for the Nintendo 3DS. Honestly, I probably like have enough examples of video games giving me gender feelings to fill up an entirely separate video, but none of those examples would be quite as like obviously transgender as this particular experience I had with Animal Crossing. If you aren't already familiar with the Animal Crossing games, they are a series of life sim games where you play as like a little human who moves to a new town populated by animals, and you catch fish and bugs, and you make friends, and you decorate, and you pay off your mortgage to a raccoon. It's a good time. Now, in the first 3 Animal Crossing games in the series, at the start, it would give you the gender choice. Are you a boy or a girl? And I would historically choose boy because that is what I thought I was. And then the game would like lock you into that choice, right? You chose boy, you are a boy, and then if you wanted to like go and buy some clothes, you would be limited to only the boy options. However, Animal Crossing New Leaf was the first game in the series that basically said regardless of the gender you chose at the start, we're going to give you all of the options. You can choose whatever hair or clothes that you want, regardless of the gender that those items were originally intended for. So every day that I played Animal Crossing, and I played a lot of Animal Crossing, I would go to the Able Sisters and I would look at all of the girl clothes on display and know that I could buy them if I wanted to, and also that I did want to buy them, but I wouldn't do that because I was a boy and that would be weird. Until one day when I went into the store and there was this pink, very feminine dress on sale, and I finally thought, fuck it, and I bought it. And then I went to the hairstylist and I answered a very long and elaborate series of questions in a very specific order that I looked up online so I could get a matching feminine haircut. And then for one day, I played Animal Crossing as a girl. And it was nice. Yes, the next day I did immediately detransition my Animal Crossing character because I was really scared that someone would see what I'd done and learn my secret. But for one day, I did get to be myself in Animal Crossing. So that was clue number 2. And yes, I do know that Tom Nook is a raccoon dog, or a tanuki, and not an actual raccoon. I just thought raccoon was funnier. Please do not come for me, Animal Crossing fans. I am one of you. Okay, so while writing this video, I realized that I had way too many of these clues if I was going to keep on going into so much detail about each and every one of them. So now is time for the lightning round, for the ones that maybe require a little bit less explanation. Anytime that I watched a Bugs Bunny do drag, and found myself getting jealous of how good he looked, being too embarrassed to sing along to Cheyenne Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman, I guess because I must have thought the lyrics were too truthful or something. And then later, when I finally did sing along to that song, feeling strangely empowered by it. The fact that I have actually watched quite a lot of anime, but have never really told anyone that because I was always embarrassed by the fact that every single anime that I had seen included some kind of gender bending in the story. The way that I knew a surprisingly large amount about transgender people and trans rights, to the point where I would often downplay the amount of knowledge I actually had in order to not raise any suspicion. That one time that I did do drag, which is something that I otherwise very much avoided, it was for a friend's Moulin Rouge themed birthday party, and I remember I spent the whole time feeling very uncomfortable and unhappy because I didn't look as pretty as I was hoping I would. The one time when I was out to dinner with my family and the waiter accidentally called me Miss, and the way that I felt way more uncomfortable about the fact that he kept on trying to apologize for it than I ever did about the fact that he had misgendered me in the first place. The fact that for a very long time, my favorite film was The Matrix, in large part because of the way that I felt like I really related to Neo and his story for reasons that I didn't necessarily entirely understand, and then later discovering that the film was in fact a trans allegory written and directed by 2 trans women. And speaking of trans allegories, the last clue on this list is actually the one that I wrote myself. So back in 2020, I co-created this show called Don't Look Deeper, which released on Quibi. And if you know Quibi, you probably know it as the failed mobile streaming platform that everyone on Twitter made fun of until it ultimately shut down less than a year after launching. And if you don't know Quibi, that is why. For the purposes of this video though, the important part is the actual story of the show itself. So Don't Look Deeper is about this young woman called Aisha who discovers that she is a machine. Which is a very cool and unique sci-fi concept that nobody had ever thought of before I did. The important part of this though really is the journey that she goes on after she makes this discovery, because she ends up questioning her entire identity, she enters a period of denying this truth about herself, ultimately learns to accept it, and then goes further into embracing it, embracing the things about herself that make her different. She gains full control over her own body, she gains her autonomy, and then ultimately she has to justify herself to the people around her, justifying why she deserves to exist, why she isn't a threat, why she deserves to live at all. And if it's not already obvious, just play that synopsis back and think of it from the perspective of a transgender person, and you probably will get a pretty good idea about what was going on in my head. At the time of writing the show, I had the thought that I might be transgender, but I was very, very deep in denial at that point. And so the show was never like intentionally written as a trans allegory. I wasn't trying to put a secret message in it or anything. I was just having an identity crisis and I was trying to figure out what on earth was going on with me. And so writing the story kind of was my way of working through that, I guess. So in hindsight, I think it makes a lot of sense that the story that I most wanted to tell, the story I felt like I needed to tell, was one of a woman who went on a very close approximation of the journey that I myself wanted to go on, even if I didn't know that consciously yet. And then it's a journey that I eventually did go on. So that's nice. So those are my clues. If anyone has any of their own that you want to share, I'd love to hear them. Not necessarily just trans folks either, but anyone who has, memories of those moments that confused you at the time that now feel like, just super obvious clues of the person that you were always supposed to be, if you feel like sharing. I do also want to say I would very much like to and do intend to produce more YouTube videos than I currently am. But, being a public trans person does bring in some less than desirable folks, and so it can take a lot of time sometimes for me to just build up the confidence to be back and be perceived. So I appreciate you all having patience while I navigate that. In the meantime, if you'd like to see more from me, I do stream 3 times a week on Twitch. And also, if anyone feels inclined to support me and the work that I do, I did soft launch a Patreon recently. We just have the 1 tier for access to a couple of secret streams a month. No obligation, of course, but the option is there if anyone feels like it. So yeah, hopefully it won't be too long until you see me on here again. In the meantime, start taking bets on what color you think my hair is going to be next time. And thank you very much for watching. Bye.